Hi, everybody. Good to see you all again. I was doing workshops every few weeks for almost a year, and then I had to take a break, and so it's good to get back into the swing of things. Headphones work for everybody. So Valerie is good at following instructions. I appreciate it, Valerie. So Valerie is letting us know she's from South Florida. That's awesome. I just spent 7 months or so in southwestern Florida on the Gulf Coast, the Bonita Springs, Naples area. Loved it there. Just love it there. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. I appreciate it. I'm glad. It'll make the workshop a lot more effective if you can hear me. So, Deb says she's from Virginia. Janine says she's also from Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia. Joanne is from Colorado. Gigi is from Maryland. Excellent. Jessica's from Charlotte. Oh, look, Ollie is in New York City. I am currently I forgot to tell you where I am. So I'm currently in Long Island, relocating to the New York City area for a while. I've spent maybe 25 years in the area before, so pretty familiar. Overseas fan? Wait, Wayne, where are you from? I need to know. Please tell me. Nikki is from Detroit, Michigan. Michelle is from Canada. I always have a really nice group from Canada. I love it so much. Um, Lori's from Pittsburgh, but originally from Chicago. Nice. Rebecca's in New Jersey. There's someone from Maryland. Andrea's from Charlotte, North Carolina. Marianne is from Springfield, PA, west of Philly. I actually was born and raised in Philly. I grew up in Philly. So I love that area. I just spent almost a week in Philly last week in my uh, very abbreviated but extended at the same time trip from Oakland. I drove from Oakland to New York City. Um, oh, Greg, all your family's in Long Island and in New Jersey. Nice. Brian's from Maryland. Excuse me. Phil's from Northern Colorado. I just drove across the country. So I spent a night in Longmont or outside Longmont, Colorado, seeing a friend of mine. More North Carolina, more North Carolina. Wow, we got a good contingency from North Carolina today. That's excellent. So you can see some of you have already been doing this very well, but please take a moment and introduce yourself and share in the chat where in the world you're joining from. I think to me, it's one of the coolest things about doing these virtual workshops. I've done in-person workshops before, and there's obviously real advantages to being in person. There's the energy and the connection, and getting a chance to really meet you in person is very different, of course. But I do feel like one of the amazing things about doing these workshops virtually is just the being able to be connected to so many people from so many different places, all of us kind of logging on at the same time. Anna is from Pennsylvania. Excellent. Kim is from Indiana. I just recently drove through Indiana. Brenda is from New Mexico. Jen's from Sarasota, Florida. Excellent. Wendy is from Fairfax, Virginia. We got a lot of Virginia and North Carolina. Kirsten's from Ontario. Excellent. I love my Canada crew, so to speak. Carla's from Boston. Elizabeth's from Jersey. Sue is from Massachusetts. Oh, and from Woodstock also. Hempstead, Maryland. Oh, Dallas, Texas. So from New York, look at another Melinda's from Sarasota, Florida, more southeastern Connecticut. Heidi, Rhonda's from Nantucket, Massachusetts. I love this. I think it's so cool. Jet's from Leesburg, Virginia. We've got a huge Virginia, North Carolina contingent today. I'd love to know what that's about. Um, so let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today or tonight. Um, we're going to talk about self-awareness and self-compassion. Going to really kind of dive into that for a bit. So there's a couple of things I want you to know. One, you can use the chat during the session. Absolutely. I cannot pay attention to the chat and do the workshop. I've tried. It's a disaster. So I won't be paying attention to the chat once I get started. So if you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A feature in Zoom. If you don't have that on your bottom bar down there, then excuse me, go to the three dot on the right-hand side where it says more, and then you click that and you'll be able to see the Q&A feature. Submit your questions that way. That way, once you have it open up, you can see other people's questions also. And then I will answer them either during the workshop or at the end. Um, we'll probably be together for about 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, depending upon the number of questions. But then this should be around 45 minutes or so. And then I'm open to stick around for as long as you have questions or comments. One unique thing I do with this workshop that I would love your help with is I'm going to get to a point where I want to demonstrate self-awareness. And it's a really weird thing to demonstrate. And the way that I have figured out to do it is to have you ask me questions, not about self-awareness per se, but about anything you want. You can pick any topic about me that you want to ask, and I will do my best to answer it. But while I'm answering it, I will also tell you what my self-awareness experience is. So what I'm thinking, feeling, and experiencing while I'm receiving the questions, trying to answer the questions, so on and so forth. And so that's the best way that I've come up with to kind of give you some sort of live feedback on what that's like. But it's kind of important that I get some participation from you in order to ask me some questions. So you want to ask me about I've now traveled across the country twice this year in 2026. So you want to ask me about anything on that trip or anything about my life, whatever you'd like to do, go ahead. Um, there'll be a slide that asks for volunteers. And at that point, if you can just start submitting questions, that would be great. And we'll kind of see how that goes. Jennifer is from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. Nice. And then again, you can use the chat. It'll be open. It'll be available to you. But and also just so you know, I record these sessions. I also have this slide deck, and tomorrow I'll send you an email with the recording and the slide deck, so you have access to them. So if you missed something or you feel like you wanted to rewatch it again, you're totally welcome to do that. Okay, Massachusetts, Ohio, excellent. Um, And so what I'd like to do, oh, and again, if you're using the raise your hand feature, that doesn't really work as well on the Zoom webinar, which is what this is. So just ask your question in the chat, and that would be great. Okay, so let's get ourselves started. So today I'm going to talk about two things and how they tie together primarily: self-awareness and self-compassion. For shorthand, we can just call it compassionate self-awareness. It's this powerful synergy where we're using the insight we have into our inner world and also combining that with this unconditional kindness for ourselves. And my perspective, my belief is this is where true lasting healing begins. This is where you really get a chance to heal some of those really deep, old, kind of more childhood wounds that we all struggle with. Before I go any further, let me tell you a little bit about me. So I'm Jeremy Schneider. I run a company called Build on Your Strengths. I'm a licensed master of social work and a family therapist and a published author. And I do workshops and I do a lot of writing. So if you aren't familiar with my work, I hope you'll enjoy today and maybe check out my website. Okay, so let's talk about the two keys again. So we've got self-awareness and we've got self-compassion. What is self-awareness and what is self-compassion? So self-awareness is an honest look at what's happening inside you. It's really taking a look at your patterns, your reactions, your triggers, your body's signals. It's what your body is experiencing and being aware of that while it's happening, or even shortly thereafter, right? With self-compassion, it's treating ourselves with kindness and care, the way that we would someone that we deeply love and care about. And that helps us to understand why we react the way we do, not just the way we reacted. It's talking to ourselves with kindness. It's creating a sense of safety within our own internal life that allows us to heal and grow. And what I like to say is it's a lot like peanut butter and chocolate. When you combine them together, it's even more delicious. So let's take a look at self-awareness. This is really an important point, and I find that a lot of people really struggle with this concept that they think self-awareness is knowing themselves. And so I kind of want to help you really understand this better. Knowing you like peanut butter and chocolate, and again, it's not that I'm obsessed, I promise you, but knowing you like peanut butter and chocolate and knowing that you are better in the mornings and knowing your personality type, those kinds of things where you know these things about yourself, that's self-knowledge. And that's also important, but it's less important in terms of the healing and growing process. That's just helpful in sort of figuring out how you want to be and what you want to do during the day and which ways are better to work than others, right? Self-awareness is being aware of what you are thinking, feeling, and experiencing. Those are the three keys. You want to have this layer over your experience of the world. So you want to have this kind of monitoring layer, this noticing layer that is, I'm thinking something. Oh, look, I can see that I'm thinking about something. You have a feeling. Oh, I see that I'm feeling something. You have some sort of physical reaction, a tension in your stomach, heart racing, sweats, whatever it is. Noticing I'm 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 having my heart is racing and having this awareness. Oh, my heart is racing. What is that saying? What is that signaling to me? So it's really just kind of building this layer of noticing, of monitoring over the way that you function in life. And some people worry that this is like something you're either born with or not born with, and that's absolutely not true. I'm really happy to say that anybody can learn and build their sense of self-awareness. You really need to think of it more of like a muscle, and just such a cheesy thing to say sometimes, but it's true. You really need to think of it more as a muscle, right? This is something that the more you exercise, the more you practice, the better you get at. So, like when I started, I wasn't great at self-awareness. So I've been doing it a really long time now, and I'm pretty darn good at it at this point, right? So it's just a matter of saying, hey, this is something I'd like to get better at, and then working with someone or working with tools that help you get better at it. That's self-awareness. Anybody have any questions about what self-awareness is? I'm going to take a drink. Delicious. Great. So let's talk about self-compassion. So self-compassion is very different, but still incredibly useful. The way that you feel about someone that you really care about, whether that's a partner, whether that's a parent, whether it's a child or a best friend, or even like a niece or a nephew, they're great examples for thinking about self-compassion. So think about sorry, Dr. Kristen Neff, that's who's pictured here. It's her book, Self-Compassion. She's kind of the pioneer. She really developed all of the research into self-compassion and really helped us figure out how valuable a tool it is. And she breaks self-compassion down into three elements. The first is self-kindness. And that was what I was starting to talk about, which is treating ourselves the way we would treat someone that we truly care about. And so a lot of us struggle with, an inner critic or, kind of harsh judgment, things like that, right? Self-compassion is really trying to move past that. And part of a good way of doing that is like, is this something that I would say to my child? Is this something I would say to my niece? Or is this something I would say to my mom? Whatever it is, right? And if it's that harsh, we're likely not going to say it to someone that we truly care about. We want to treat ourselves the same way that we would treat somebody else that we care about because we do care about each other. We do care about ourselves, even if sometimes we kind of don't remember, right? So that's self-kindness, common humanity. That's why one of the reasons why I like having everybody tell me where they're from when they log in. Because think about this. We've joined from dozens of different states. And sorry, give me one second. Um, sorry, give me one second. My apologies, folks. There's someone on the chat that has gotten out of control. Um, I've actually never had that happen before. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Really sorry about that. I've genuinely never had that happen on one of these. So I've kicked them out. Hopefully they won't come back. If they do come back, please let me know, and I will take care of that. But one of the reasons why I like looking at where people are coming from is because the idea that, like, think of it like right this moment, right? What is it? It is 7:16 Eastern time. We've got maybe 15, 20 different states represented here, maybe a country or two that we didn't see. And we're all logging in at the same moment from all of these different places, basically trying to figure out the same stuff, right? Trying to figure out how do we care for ourselves? How do we grow? How do we heal? And I think what's so special about that is that when we're suffering, when we're really going through a difficult time, we think we're the only one, right? We think we're the only person that's really going through this. And I find that these moments, one of the things I like about these workshops, and one of the reasons I like people telling us where they're coming from, is because we realize, wait a second, there's a whole bunch of us spread out all over, trying to figure out the same stuff, working together. And I think there's something really special about that. And that's kind of the whole idea behind common humanity. Common humanity is the idea that we all suffer, we all go through different things. So even though we feel very alone when we're struggling, the truth is there are other people also struggling, and we're not alone. We are still connected to others, even if we don't necessarily see them in person. And so I hope that you kind of get that feeling when we're kind of thinking about where everybody's from and how we're all kind of joining together at the same time from all these different places. And then let's talk about mindful awareness. So, mindful awareness is really about kind of, and this is where it ties into self awareness, but it's also about being connected to our feelings, to our experiences, right? It's too easy to get lost in our head and forget that we need to feel these feelings and experience them and allow them to happen instead of just like pushing them aside. And so, but the flip side is we don't want to over-identify. We don't want to be so lost in these dark feelings that we can't get out. Mindful awareness allows us to be connected without over-identifying, but also allows us to be connected without disconnecting. And that's really important. So those are the three components of self-compassion. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but next month, I have declared it, it's just me. I've declared it Self-Compassion Month. So August is Self-Compassion Month. I'll be doing an entire free workshop on self-compassion where I go much more into the research and the techniques. And then I'm doing a coaching intensive that is focused on self-compassion and turning your inner critic to your inner ally. So I'll tell you more about those, but get excited because August is Self-Compassion Month. The reason why I like to teach this workshop is because if you have just self-awareness, which is really good, or you have self-compassion, which is also really good, they're less effective on their own. So if you have self-awareness and you notice, oh, I'm people pleasing again. I always do this. What's wrong with me? Right? There's that awareness, but you still might have judgment. You still might have a harshness, and you're kind of stuck because of that, the struggle, the judgment, the negativity that you're experiencing. You see the problem, but you're your own worst critic. The opposite is with self-compassion. It's like it's okay that I people please. I'm doing my best, but nothing really changes because you have no awareness of the patterns that you're doing. You have no awareness of the situations where that most likely happened and what you can do about it. So it's helps you feel a little bit better, but it doesn't help you grow and it's not helping you really heal. But when you combine them together, again, peanut butter and chocolate, my friends, right? When you combine them together, it's I notice I'm people pleasing again. That makes sense. It kept me safe as a kid. I can choose differently now. And that's where I really want you to see it, right? You notice the patterns, that's great. But then you put it within the context of like, yeah, what I went through as a child makes me like this. That makes sense. I understand that. I also want to be different now. So it's not even like you're not accepting responsibility. You're being accountable. You're having the awareness, you're having compassion, you're being accountable so that you can grow and heal. And that's where, frankly, the magic happens. That's where the good stuff really starts to develop for you. So I want to kind of give you an example of that. And this is where we're getting to volunteers. So um, why don't we do a couple things? I'm going to take a quick look at the questions and see if there's anything that I can answer right now or if we should wait till the end. And then if anyone would like to help me with this self-awareness demonstration, now's a good time to ask questions. Just anything you want to ask about my life, about if you don't know anything about me, you can ask anything you want. If you know things about me, you can also ask about those as well. Um, and we'll kind of go from there. I can start with, let's take that example of um, the the commenter in the chat. I don't know if all of you saw that, but definitely I saw it, and that totally distracted me. Let's take that moment for a moment. Take that moment for a moment and use that as a good starting point in terms of what I'm talking about in terms of self-awareness. So like I saw these messages pop up that were so offensive. And my first reaction was just panic because I had never experienced that before on one of these, and I've done dozens of these at this point. And I wasn't sure what to do. And I could tell it was really distracting me. And I was afraid that everybody was going to be getting upset about it. So you can see there's like layers of thought processes happening right inside my head. And then I was like, I tried to start to delete a message and then I couldn't. I was in the chat and I couldn't seem to get rid of him. And I was like panicking and I wasn't sure what to do. And I realized, okay, wait a second. Here's what I can get him. I can kick him out and report him. Fine. And then just sort of like, I was still like sweating. I was still kind of reverberating from that for a couple minutes afterwards, but still trying to focus. And I think just that's kind of what being aware is. Like I had this reaction. I was aware I was having this reaction, and then I was trying to address that as quickly as I could in order to frankly care for all of you, but also care for myself. So I hope that kind of helps give you an idea. I want to take a look at some of these questions. Um, I love that people are starting to throw stuff in. Um, So Janine asks, what brings you genuinely joy? That's a good question. These days, what brings me genuine joy is nature. Um, I've just I've developed this love for nature that I think, frankly, had always been there, but had been kind of boxed up. And lately, I've released it into the world and allowed me to really feel joy. So, particularly when I'm seeing water, particularly when I'm seeing trees, when I'm seeing wildlife, I feel so fully me. And so, kind of my experience of that question was like, that's a great question. That's a question that's going to be easy for me to answer. It's going to make me feel good to answer. I was like feeling some relief over the fact that like, okay, that's a question I can handle, you know? Um, let's see. So someone asked, how did you get to this point in your journey? Did you have a bad childhood experience? So I get this question. For those of you that haven't been to any of my workshops before, I'm pretty clear that I had a very difficult childhood. I don't believe I've gone into much detail about that. But um, I have two master's degrees. I've spent probably 25 years, give or take, in therapy. That doesn't happen with a good childhood, is what I like to say. And so I've really devoted a lot of my life to this process and understanding myself, and then using that understanding to help other people. Um, but so this is that like self-awareness layer. That self-awareness layer is like, I'm always afraid of what if I say too much? I want people to understand that like I have both experience in terms of being a therapist, but also experience in terms of having difficult experiences growing up. And at some point, maybe that story comes out, but like how much does come out? And so there's always that layer of self-awareness of like, just be careful about what you're going to say. I don't want you to say too much, but I want to be honest with you. Like it's something that's very important to me is to be honest with you. And so finding that balance has always been a challenge. So I saw that question and part of me was just like, "Nah, I always I like that question, but I worry about that question." So someone that's ironic. The next question is, was your child a happy one? What inspired you to get into this career? No, my child was absolutely not a happy one. There was almost nothing happy about my childhood. And that is what inspired me to get into this career. Particularly, I mean, I wanted to be a therapist since I was 9, if that gives you any hint. And so, but really what happened was as I started to do the work on myself, as I started to really figure out what was making a difference for me, it really became clear how much I wanted to try and help other people find that same route because kind of traditional therapy wasn't what helped me. It was a lot of this self-awareness work. It was a lot of self-care work, which is another workshop I do a lot of. And just a different approach to healing from trauma than sort of the more traditional therapy that I had experienced. I'm sorry, I left this slide up. I'll go to this one. Um, Trying to see what other questions we've got. Oh, Nikki B asks, do I have any pets? So it's funny you asked that because I always feel weird about this question because I feel like it's such like a defining personality test almost about people. So I don't have any pets, but my daughter, who is I have 23-year-old twins. My daughter has a pet as a dog, and I this is the only dog I love. Uh, it's really the only pet that I love at all. Um, and so I don't have a pet, but I am related to a pet, and I will care for the pet from time to time, and I love that pet. Um, what is my favorite place? It's Moab. So, Valerie, thank you for asking that because that's a nice softball question for me. So, I love nature. I think Moab is one of the most amazing places I've ever been. And if I get the opportunity, I would love to spend a year or so in Moab, just living that kind of lifestyle, hiking in the desert and in the rocks and stuff, and really enjoying it. There's a place called Arches National Park, which to me is it's like heaven on earth. It's just so beautiful. It's extraordinary. And so I really enjoyed that. So you asked me that question, Valerie, and part of me is just like I can feel some of the tension just even thinking about Moab. Like I can feel less stressed. Like that's how special that place is for me. I was wearing actually all day one of my Moab t-shirts because I love it so much. Can you recount any experiences from your past where you think so Girish, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, asks me, have I been harsh with myself in the past and how differently would I handle that situation today? I've spent most of my life being incredibly harsh with myself. Um, and that's one of the big reasons I teach this. Like I did self-awareness and I was really good at self-awareness for, 25 years. And then I learned about self-compassion. And it was like, oh, that's the piece that's been missing. And so that's partly why I combine them together because I think it's such a valuable experience to have the two of them together. And I'm going to talk a lot about this next month in August is self-compassion month. I'm going to talk a lot about this next month. But one of the things that I always suggest is you don't necessarily have to try and prevent talking harshly with yourself. It's being able to catch it and then change it. So, you know, Jeremy, you're such an idiot. That was such a stupid thing to do. It's hard to prevent that from happening. But what I can do is then say, okay, that you're not an idiot. I know I'm not an idiot. I made a mistake. That I could have handled that better, maybe. And certainly this has been a difficult time, and maybe my brain isn't quite working the way I would like. But I'm not an idiot. I'll figure this out. One way or the other, we're going to get through this. That's a real simple way of taking the harshness and translating into something that's realistic. And I don't mean like toxic positivity, but something realistic and caring for ourselves. So I'm going to pause here. There are a bunch of questions about self-awareness and self-compassion. And I'm going to hold on to those a little bit for the end so that we can keep moving. But what I'm hoping is that that was helpful in just sort of understanding not only just a little bit more about me, but how my experience of answering those questions, right? That's that self-awareness. Another phrase is metacognition, right? It's observing our own thinking, feeling, and reacting. The reason that's helpful is it allows me to adjust while I'm answering questions, while I'm responding, while I'm experiencing. And that kind of like part of the challenge, and you'll see this a lot, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, is kind of the difference between reacting and responding, right? Most of us that have been through difficult childhoods, we react out of a place of suffering, of pain, of difficulty, but we don't want to do that anymore, but it just happens. And so what self-awareness and self-compassion do together is help us be able to stop reacting, but then begin to really respond in a way that we want to from today, from the present. And again, I think the idea of like you're living your life and what you're trying to do is placing a layer of self-awareness over everything that you do. And in the beginning, it's kind of the way I think about it is like shining a light on a highway system. And in the beginning, you're going to shine your light and there's just going to be like you'll see one road. But really, we have this whole interconnection of awareness. We're just not seeing it yet. And so part of that practice is kind of broadening that light so you can see more and more of the way you react, the way you respond, the way you experience. So let's talk about the the simplest way to get started with this for you, which is what I call the compassionate self-awareness cycle. It's a simple three-step process. It starts with why, and then what, and now what. That's the basics. So I want you to kind of get an understanding. It's kind of this noticing something is different, an awareness that you're have a new feeling, that your emotion has shifted, your mood has shifted. So, like, I can think about, oh, I'm starting to sweat. I wonder if I'm getting anxious about something. I wonder what's happening, right? So, you want to have that notice that begins you asking why. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I reacting this way? Has something changed? That's the why. That's that noticing part. Then you get to what. Okay, so what is like providing context? It's beginning to understand what's happening. Oh, this is making me anxious because it feels so much like when my parent would do this. Or, this is making me anxious because I'm feeling helpless. And when I feel helpless, I feel so much more like a little kid. And so, kind of getting that context, that understanding. Yes, I'm reacting that way because this is what I'm feeling. And then you get to now what? So, okay, we figured out something has changed. We're beginning to understand what has changed and why it's happened. And now we're getting to, well, what do we do about it? Part of that is self-care. Part of that is, and included with that is being compassionate with ourselves. And then part of it is, okay, well, maybe I reacted in a way I didn't want to, or maybe I haven't reacted yet, but now I get a chance to think about how I really want to respond. What do I want to, what do I want out of this situation? And what do I do about it? But the first part of now what is always care. There's always compassion. So let's walk through an example. So here, this is the cycle in action. So just let's take a scenario where your boss sends you kind of a terse email, maybe it's a little rude, right? Something, right? And you read the email and you notice like your heart starts to race, or you notice that you're starting to get anxious. Um, and so the first thing you want to do is try to have that layer of awareness to notice, oh, there's some physical response even if you don't know what it means or what it's about, right? Just that something has shifted, just noticing that is going to be huge. Okay, my stomach just tightened. What's going on? What's happening here? You want to begin to just practice that. That's the first thing you want to do is just practice that noticing, that awareness, right? Okay, now you begin to get to that what phase, right? So oh, this reminds me of being criticized as a kid, or this just reminds me of what it was like being sent to the principal's office, or this is, I always, when he does this or she does this, I feel this way. And then this is that story that I tell myself, right? We all have these stories that we tell ourselves about what these experiences mean. So that can be like coming home from school and realizing that your parents saw your report card and like knowing that you're going to be in trouble about something, right? Like we kind of tell these stories about ourselves. And so you want to be able to see why you're reacting the way you are now based on your past experiences. So that's that what? It's that understanding, it's that getting some context. Like, yeah, of course it makes sense that I would experience this terse email as maybe a threat, maybe a bad sign, because that's what I'm used to. That's the way I was raised. That was my experience growing up with my dad or whatever it happens to be. Right? So you've got that noticing. You notice you have some physical reaction or an emotional reaction. You then give yourself a couple moments to really think about, well, why would I feel this way? What is happening inside me? What's the connection to my past? Right? You're connecting that present feeling to past experiences. And then you realize, okay, now what? I understand this. Now what do I do? Instead of reacting, you have this real chance to say, one, first, let me take care of myself. Maybe I'll take a few breaths. Just do that a few times. Just allow my body and my nervous system to regulate a little bit better. I'll let myself know that, like, I've been through this before. I can handle this again. We're going to be okay. And then also sort of thinking about, well, then what can you actually do about it? And if you want clarification, maybe you send your boss an email that says, hey, just I wasn't sure what you meant by this. Can you let me know? Or stop by their office and just be like, hey, I got your email. What did you want to talk about? Instead of like waiting it out as the anxiety grows and grows, right? So we have this process of noticing, kind of understanding and putting it into context, and then the care, compassion piece, and then figuring out what we want to do next. Why, what, now what? I just want you to take a moment because I'm guessing that this is not the first time you've seen something like this, that you've had cycles like this before without the awareness and the compassion piece, but you've been triggered by something that a friend did, a partner did, a parent did, a boss did, and you reacted. And maybe only later on realized, oh, I was reacting because of how I felt when I was a kid. It had actually very little to do with that situation. To sort of think about that for a moment and then think about what it would be like to apply the why, what, now what, the compassionate awareness cycle process. So before I get to questions, I just want to kind of leave you with this really important idea, which is we never need to be perfect. We're always going to be making mistakes. And when we learn something new, it's always a challenge, right? That beginning part is always tricky. Doing something new, we're fraught with making mistakes, right? That's totally okay. We're going to practice compassionate self-awareness with compassion. Some days will be fine. Some days will be like, you're never going to get this. That's okay. You're just going to keep trying every day the best you can. And you're going to be kind to yourself about it. And before you know it, you're going to keep growing this skill, building this muscle. And that's really what the whole purpose is. And I think at some point, what you start to realize is, and this is kind of deep, but most of us who grow up with troubled childhoods are searching for someone who's the answer to heal us. And the truth is what you start to realize with this process of self-awareness and self-compassion is that we're the ones we've been waiting for. We're the ones that can do the healing for ourselves that we thought we were dependent on someone else to be able to do for us. Thank you very much. If you liked my workshop, I hope you'll take a moment to rate and review it so other people can find it as well. I just want to tell you real quick before I get to questions The upcoming workshops. So August is self-compassion month, right? So we're going to be talking a lot about self-compassion. You think I touched on it now? This is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. So August 7th is my free workshop. You Matter Too, the science and practice of self-compassion. I'm going to talk a lot about Kristen Neff. We're going to explore what she's done, the research that she has found, and some practical tools to develop a kinder relationship with yourself. If you want more information about that, go check out jgs.net/workshop or just go to Meetup. And again, all of this will be in the link tomorrow. I'll send you, I'll post this on Meetup tomorrow, so you'll have a chance to take a look at it. On August 27th is my coaching intensive. And so this is a small group, usually less, I don't have it be more than 15 people. So it's usually in the neighborhood of 10 people or so. So small group, you really get individual attention. And we're going to deep dive into actually practicing self-compassion and looking at the things that make it difficult for you to do so. Because let's address them together so that by the time that you're finished, you feel like you can really get some of this going on your own. And so there you can go to jgs.net/intensive, or again, it's also on Meetup. And that one's called From Inner Critic to Inner Ally. Okay, so those are the two things that are coming up in August. I have September, October, November, and December workshops also lined up in Meetup. So if you liked this one, I hope you will join me for some of those as well. And now let's really take a look at some of the questions that we've gotten. So Karen talks about working on skills to heal and cope with CPSD, so complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I struggle with over-identification at times. What tips do you have if someone should find themselves falling into that pattern? So Karen, I think, I know this sounds a little bit weird, but something like mindfulness meditation could be really helpful. One, for those of us that struggle with CPSD, right? Our nervous system is out of whack. And I mean that in the most loving, affectionate way, right? And that is not a criticism of you by any stretch. That is the nature of going through a difficult childhood, is that our nervous system is off kilter. It is dysregulated. One of the most important things that we can do to help ourselves, nervous system regulation. One of the best ways to do nervous system regulation, mindfulness meditation. Breathing exercises, those kinds of things really help basically flip the switch. So often kids who grow up in difficult homes, their fight or flight reflex, the fight or flight mode, is stuck in the on position. We want to learn how to turn that off, slow down our nervous system, and then be able to better care for ourselves. So without going into too much detail, Karen, that's how I would get started. Not coincidentally, I have a free guide about if you want to get started with mindfulness meditation. Again, it's free. It should be available on my website, but Karen, if you can't find it, let me know. I will try to remember to include it in the email tomorrow with the slide deck and the recording from today. But again, if you don't get it, Karen, just reach out to me. I'm happy to send it to you. Let's see. Good. I'm glad, Karen. Let me try and get some of the older questions. How do you shift away from these automatic reactions? I've just undid another relationship where I behaved the same way throughout and during the end, constant anxiety and expressing needs with frustration instead of neutrality. So there's a few things going on here. This is, I'm not referring to the person by name because it says Samsung. I'm pretty sure that's their phone and not who they are. But a couple things to think about. One, nervous system regulation, right? Part of the reason that we react is because we're already in fight or flight mode. And so when someone says something and we already feel threatened, then we respond as if we're threatened. Anything that you can do to help manage your nervous system is going to help. And I don't mean just like doing something once in a while. I'm talking about doing stuff every single day. It is It is an important shift in the way you manage your life. I also talk a lot about scripts. If you look at my YouTube channel, I have an old workshop, old, that I did last year on scripts. And scripts is kind of what you're talking about, I think, Samsung, is that I tickle myself sometimes, is that um, the idea that we have these automatic reactions, and it's because essentially we learned these scripts when we were growing up, and when we get triggered, we act on those scripts as if we're just reading a script, even though we don't want to actually do it. We're reacting, reading these scripts that we learned long ago, and we have to learn how to create and write our own scripts to be able to respond from a healthier place of today than reacting with scripts from when we were growing up. I think that's some of what you're trying to deal with. The Hopefully that script workshop might be a little bit helpful for you. So let me know if you're not able to find that. So Jennifer asked, when talking about mindful awareness, how do you know if you are over-identifying? So over-identifying is like when you are drowning in the emotion, when you are so consumed by it that you cannot sort of be present. Mindful awareness allows us to, uh, a good example, excuse me, a good example is the stream example. So if you're standing in a stream and the water is flowing through you, it's like sometimes you can get knocked off balance. Sometimes it's just like hard to stay still, whatever it is, right? When you step onto the bank, you're watching the stream go by, but you're able to remain balanced and steady. That's kind of the idea. Think of the stream as our thoughts and our feelings. Mindfulness meditation allows us to stand on the banks and sort of see it as they pass by, still be somewhat connected with it, but not drowning in it, not being pulled away by it, not being pushed around or anything like that. So, Jennifer, I hope that helps at least a little bit in terms of processing that. Um, so Phil asked about help forgiving himself for being an absent boyfriend and it cost the relationship. I think, that's a little bit different than what we're talking about, but I do think self-compassion is an important piece here. And Phil, I think the more that you understand sort of what provoked you to behave that way, the more you'll be able to understand the context in what you were working in, right? The difficulties you've experienced that sort of led you to be that way, which then would allow you to be a little bit more compassionate with yourself and also help kind of motivate you to figure out, okay, this is why I ended up being like this. This is what I need to do to begin to make those changes to be better next time. Because I know this is kind of a weird way to think about it, but every relationship is practice for the next relationship. And so if we're not using our current relationships to grow and learn and become better at relationships, we're kind of wasting these opportunities. So fortunately or unfortunately, Phil, you've got a great opportunity to learn and grow here. And hopefully, sort of understanding where your actions come from will help you be able to understand what happened and then help you be able to grow and not do that again moving forward. So someone asked about how to let go of past instances where people never took accountability for how they hurt me and affects me every day. That is a very loaded question. Obviously, it's a little bit outside the scope of what we talked about tonight. I just want to say a big part of what happens when we can't let go of stuff is because we haven't processed something enough. And so it's still kind of stuck. The more that we kind of connect with those feelings, connect with those experiences, and allow them to kind of move through us, the more you'll be able to kind of be okay with that. Because the truth of the matter is, what those people did is what those people did. Your experience is all that matters. Whether they take accountability or not, like, yes, certainly it would be nicer if they took accountability, But the fact that they don't doesn't mean that you're limited in what you can do and how you can grow. And I think that's really important. I think this is like the flip side. Like some people feel there's a whole debate about forgiveness, whether you should forgive people that hurt you. You want to get me started on something, you can ask me about that. But what I'm saying is the same kind of applies to accountability, right? Like if they don't take accountability, that's on them. Your job is to take accountability for your own actions and your own healing and keep working and growing that way. I hope that helps. Um, let's see. So Youssef asked, wouldn't a constant self-awareness layer monitoring our thoughts and feelings take away from us living in the moment? Or to rephrase, how can we not allow that to happen? So Youssef, I think that's a great question. And it is absolutely a challenge, particularly as you get better at it, better at being self-aware. The trick is really being both aware and connected. And so this is a strange example, but like sometimes when I'm hiking, because I really like hiking, so sometimes I'm hiking, I will get lost in this kind of narration of this is so hard. Why am I doing this? I'm not good at this, but like that kind of crap that happens in our brains, right? But I'll have then the awareness to realize, oh, wait, I'm missing out. And I pause and I take a breath and I look around and I'm like, oh, right. This is why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to look inwards. I'm doing it to look outwards. I'm doing it because this view is gorgeous. This experience is beautiful. This sensation of being connected to nature is what makes me feel better. So it's using your awareness to help yourself be in the moment and then not keeping the awareness of, oh, look, I'm in the moment. And look at this, I'm in the moment and I'm experiencing the moment, right? Like it's being able to have that balance. And again, Yusuf, this is a skill. It's going to take some practice, but you're going to feel better using self-awareness to help be more connected. And then even if you over self-aware, you'll be able to correct that, right? Like, so I think really you're just trying to use self-awareness to get to that being present moment. And also you could talk about mindfulness awareness is also really a valuable tool for that. Jessica asked, why do we end up getting ourselves just a little bit mind tracked by some things and just a little bit of conditions? I'm sorry, Jessica, I'm not sure I understand that question. So if you want to try again, let me know. James asked, how do you deal with a friend without self-awareness? I mean, that's really, it's challenging. I know I'm supposed to be like Mr. Positive and supportive, but one of the challenges of doing the work that we're talking about tonight, and I talk about in all of my workshops, is we run the risk of outgrowing people in our lives. And sometimes that can be a real challenge. There's no question that I've lost people close to me because we were growing in different directions or because I really took another road. And but then I meet new people and I have great experiences with them. And I think that's just part of life. And I'm not saying, James, that you should ditch your friend. I'm just saying that's one of the challenges of doing the work. And if you can still find the value, the things of value that they bring to your life, then I would say enjoy that and don't worry about it as much. Anna asked, I feel as if I'm somewhat stuck in the past because I often ask myself, what if and if only, how do I change the state of mind and make a positive shift to the present? So again, it's a slightly off topic, but it is about self-awareness and using self-awareness to bring ourselves back to the present, kind of what Yusuf was talking about, right? The being able to notice that we're ruminating, to notice that we're getting stuck in the what ifs is valuable self-awareness technique, right? Oh, look at that. I'm getting stuck in this again. Let me bring myself back to the present. That's where it becomes really valuable. I think that's the skill you're looking for, Anna, and that's what's really going to help. Okay, I think Sorry, I'm just trying to. Sue brings up a point that makes me very nervous and anxious. Let's see. Because I just keep screwing up my dates. So the You Matter 2, the science and practice of self-compassion, is Thursday, August 6th. It is not August 7th, like I said on my slide. Thank you, Sue. Um, Look at that. Always, it's the second time I've had trouble with dates. Look at me. So there's a great example of like I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed with myself, but thankfully Sue corrected me, and hopefully I'll make the announcement tomorrow to remind people that it's actually August 6th and not August 7th. And I will try to be compassionate with myself. Greg, I'm going to skip your question. Sorry about that. Um, Wendy asked, does most trauma stem from childhood? Yeah, most of it does, for sure. You can absolutely not have childhood trauma. Like you can have trauma as an adult, no question. Is it possible to not have childhood trauma and still struggle with things in adulthood? It is, particularly if, there are chemical components to things like depression and anxiety and stuff like that. So, Wendy, I'm not diagnosing you, but certainly things like that are part of it. Um, and Jessica asks about dealing with divorce, her godparents' divorce. Um, Yeah, so I mean, I think Jessica, there's some real stuff going on there, obviously, and um, I think there's probably a lot more going on besides your godparents' divorce, and so I think that's something you're probably going to want to spend a little more time thinking about, like, why does that affect you? How did that affect you? What's going on there? Because it sounds like it's a lot more than just their divorce, but maybe the circumstances around it, how it sort of maybe interrupted things for you. Um, so I'm sorry that you're going through that. Sue, thank you. You are awesome. I really appreciate you. Okay, everybody, that's all the questions. Thank you so much. Again, I will send out the recording and the slide deck and hopefully the mindfulness guide tomorrow. And otherwise, thank you so much. I hope you join me for next month's workshops at the appropriate dates. Always just refer to Meetup because it knows more than I do. And I will talk to you all soon. Okay, take care, everybody.